First tonight to the worst wave of flooding here in Nigeria in a decade. More than 300 people have been killed and more than 100,000 have been displaced. The devastating floods followed days of torrential rains affecting 3/4 of the country. That's 29 out of 36 states. The last time something like this occurred was in 2012. Bridges and large swathes of farms have also been destroyed, dealing a severe blow to the livelihoods of so many. The authorities say more floods are expected in the coming weeks as torrential rains continue. And some dams are said to be in danger as well, whilst rivers are bursting their banks. So how is the country coping? Well, for the latest on those terrible floods and the impact they're having, I'm joined now in the studio by the Director of Special Duties at Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, or NEMA, Dr. Onimode Bandele Abdullahi. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. Give us a sense of the extent and the magnitude of the problems here with this year's floods. I understand the death toll is already about 5 times the number of people that died last year.
Thank you, first of all, for having me on this program. It's unfortunate that the flood is already ravaging the country, but let me quickly do a rundown that there were predictions that were released by NIMET and NISA. NIMET talked about the annual climate prediction. NISA gave an outlook to what the flood will look like. These things were not just kept on the desk. They were seriously examined by experts, and the messages were cascaded to states, believing that it should go to the end users, who are the people living in the rural area. Unfortunately, I would say, some of these warnings have not been adhered to. And because Mother Nature is dynamic, some of those predictions are not what we expected. Usually we'll look at...
It's worse, basically.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Because where we said it was going to be normal to higher than normal, we discovered that we had more rainfall this year than the preceding years.
And to make it more worrying, there are more floods expected because of the continuing torrential rains, and the dams are adding to this because excess water is being released in Nigeria and neighboring Cameroon, where there is a major
Yes,
dam.
because the excess water released in Nigeria is in rivers of Tiga, Hadeja. You have the Shiroro River, the Jeba Dam. This is because of the in-country torrential rainfall we're talking about. But if you look at, you spoke about Cameroon. There is a dam in Cameroon, which is the Lagdo Dam. We started releasing water on the 13th of September. This is what is causing flood already in Adamawa, which we expect will move downward to Taraba and then Benue State. So our worry now is, with our own in-country torrential rain, coupled with this water that is being released from Cameroon, people downstream should get ready to evacuate floodplain.
So you're saying it's going to affect more states than the 29 that have already been affected?
Yeah, you see, if you say affected, we in our parlance will say impacted.
Right.
The impact might not be the same. We had Jigawa, which was impacted because there was river flooding. But in some states in the southwest, you have had flood which was due to flash flood, inability of this water to run through culverts, drainages. Those ones will eventually run off. But when we say impacted, these ones that have really caused damages to human life, to livelihood, homes, properties, farmlands. As at 3-4 days ago, my DG had a press conference with the media where he itemized those states that have been highly impacted and those that are likely to be impacted.
Right.
So the message is, if the people who are downstream, the government who who are downstream should please prepare their populace to take action.
Right, and the death toll has passed 300 now, hasn't it, since July. And the last time there were that many deaths from flooding was a decade ago in 2012. And some of the victims dying either from the collapse of buildings or they were swept away by floodwaters.
Yes, I saw the figure too, just like you said. But the ones that we know, we have had some deaths in Jigawa, some in Niger, some few deaths in Kano. I cannot authenticate the number per se, because this is a continuous exercise and we get report from our zonal territorial offices.
So it's changing, basically.
It changes every day. But it's at the end of the whole lecture I'll be able to say, okay, having done ABC,
this is the death toll.
Yes.
And in terms of the worst affected areas of Nigeria, I understand states in the northwest and the northeast have been hardest hit.
As at now, like I told you, the water that is coming in from Kebbi, that is coming in from Niger, is running through Anambra and going to Bayelsa before emptying into the ocean. So that is not happening in the south and southwest today. Does not mean they will not fail in.
Right, I understand what you mean.
Yes.
And in terms of the so basically we can expect more floods.
Definitely.
How is the National Emergency Management Agency, your agency, coping? I understand that some displaced people have been complaining of a lack of support from the authorities.
Well, I would not know those who are complaining. Nigeria, as we are, everybody wants federal government to do the magic. But like I said,
well, these people are in distress, aren't they?
This disaster we talk about happened in a particular location. This location belongs to a local government. You see, we must appreciate the fact that the federal government is playing the big daddy to everybody. But the same money that federal government is using to assist people in need, the state government takes part of this. The local government takes part of it. So it is expected that these two tiers of government too should come up with policies that will assuage the effect of this flood on the populace when it does happen. But as it is today, NEMA is not resting on its oars. We have mobilized people, our staff and stakeholders, for rapid assessment, where we have been able to identify where these people are. Support have been given to them in form of food and non-food items.
I mean all the people that you've come across?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
And like I speak to you today, my DG made it clear that even staff that are on leave have been asked to come back because we're in the process of activating.
Yeah, but that's not, nobody's questioning your determination to do all you can. The question is whether all you're doing is enough.
It cannot be enough because our resources is not even enough to do our job. But what we are saying is within the limit of our available resources, NEMA is reaching out to us many.
Right. That means that there are a lot of people who are displaced, who are basically not feeling the impact of your assistance.
I beg your pardon.
Well, you just said so.
What I'm saying is, as we progress into this flooding, we are doing stockpiling, and I speak to you. Materials have been delivered to states. I, for instance, I seated with you. By tomorrow, I will be out to provide, to deliver relief material on behalf of federal government to some people who have been affected.
And these are mostly poor people, aren't they? And presumably many have been reluctant to leave their farms, understandably, even if they've been warned about the risk of flooding, simply because that's their livelihood.
We understand that. But the approach should be plant early maturing crop. You see, flood that we talk about, it's not about negativity. Flood itself has some useful part of it. After the flood, you have alluvial soil that have been moved from one point to the other. This is... It
makes the soil rich.
Very rich.
Right.
And you can do a second cycle of cropping on it if you really plan your planting season. So our advice is state government, agric extension workers should make these people who live very close to the river bank to plant early maturing crop so that they can live before the flood water comes, and after the flood water, After the floodwater must have receded, they can go back again and do another crop off.
But obviously, it requires proper education with people, many people who are subliterate.
That is why I mentioned the state agric extension worker. These are the closest people to the people who live in the rural areas.
And in fairness to you, your job is to deal with emergencies, but the authorities themselves don't have proper plans or accommodation to actually evacuate people to safer ground, do they?
Well, if you say the government, we cannot generalize the statement. Like NEMA works with stakeholders, fire service, the military, civil defense, even the local divers, the local canoe owners. We are in partnership with them. So for evacuation, we engage every stakeholder that can be useful in aspect of evacuation. So if you say government don't have plans, there are plans in place. It's activation and monitoring that is very important.
Right.
You should meet these people before the flood comes. Not at the peak of the flood, you start running.
Well, that's the point we're making. Accommodation, making proper plans of accommodation to evacuate people to
higher
safer ground before this happens.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to thank you very much indeed for the work that you're doing, but also the fact that you took the time to come in and talk to us. And Dr. Onimode Bandele Abdullahi is the Director of Special Duties at Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. It's my pleasure being here.